Today, in the media conference with Lal Goel, which is brought to you by V4 News, Global TV, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV, News Gaon Se, Samvad Sarokar News, Organ Donation India Foundation, and Gyan. Our endeavor is to enlighten you with the current topic. And today, our topic is fishermen, problems, and prospects. But before I will go to the main topic, I would like to inform you that today India is celebrating Vasant Panchami. Vasant Panchami is also called Saraswati Puja. It's a festival that marks the preparation for the arrival of spring. Vasant Panchami also marks the start of preparation for Holika and Holi, which take place 40 days later. Vasant Panchami marked at a time when bright yellow flowers and the ripe mustard plants dominate rural India. Surprisingly, several spring flowers are yellow across the world, including the daffodils, marigold or genda, shiuli or night jasmine, and yellow lilies are among the many yellow spring flowers in India. This is the main reason of yellow being the dominant color of Vasant Panchami, and as the name suggests, Vasant refers to the spring season. As per Hindu mythology, Saraswati is the goddess of wisdom, intellect, and learning. Saraswati has 4 arms representing the 4 aspects of human personalities in learning: the mind, intellect, alertness, and ego. She holds in her hands a book, prose, a rosary of crystal beads, poetry, and a veena, music. Her final hand holds a pot of sacred water, which represent the purity of these 3 arts and their power to purify human thoughts. She is often pictured seated on a lotus or a peacock wearing a white dress. Yellow color holds a special meaning on this festival. It signifies the brilliance of nature and the vibrancy of the life. People on this day dress in yellow and offer yellow flowers and bhog prasad to the goddess. Media conference with Lal Goel wishes that everyone be bestowed with knowledge and wisdom on this auspicious day. Now, coming to our main topic, fishermen, problems, and prospects. A fisher or fisherman is someone who captures fish and other animals from a body of water or gathers shellfish. Worldwide, there are about 38 million commercial and subsistence fishers and fish farmers. Historically, texts like Kautilya's Arthashastra 321 BC and King Someshwara's Manasolasa 1127 AD refer to fish culture. For centuries, India has had a traditional practice of fish culture in small ponds. Significant advances in productivity were made in the early 19th century with the controlled breeding of carp in tanks where river conditions are simulated. Brackish water farming was done on an old system where man-made impediments in coastal wetlands and salt-resistant deep water paddy fields. Moreover, traditional fishing methods have been in practice in Central and South India for 2000 years. Fishers may be professional or recreational. Fishing has existed as a means of obtaining food since the Mesolithic period. Fishing had become a major means of survival as well as a business venture. Fisheries is an important sector in India. It provides employment to millions of people and contributes to the food security of the country. With a coastline of over 8,000 kilometers, an exclusive economic zone (EEZ) of over 2 million square kilometers, and with extensive freshwater resources, fisheries plays a vital role. Presently, fisheries and aquaculture contribute 1.07% to the national GDP and 5.30% to agriculture and allied activities, while the average annual value of output during the 10th five-year plan 2002 to 2007 was rupees 31,682.50 crores. Marine fisheries contributes to the food security and provides direct employment to over 1.5 million fisher people, besides other indirectly dependent on the sector. According to the CMFRI Census 2010, there are 3,288 marine fishing villages and 1,511 marine fish landing centers in 9 marine states and 2 union territories. The total marine fisher folk population was about 4 million, comprising in 8,64,550 families. Nearly 61% of the fishermen families were under BPL category. The average family size was 4.63 and the overall sex ratio was 928 females per 1,000 males. Almost 58% of the fisher folk were educated with different levels of education. About 38% marine fisher folk were engaged in active fishing, with 85% of them having full-time engagement. About 63.6% of the fisher folk were engaged in fishing and allied activities. Nearly 57% of the fisher folk engaged in fish seed collection were females and 43 were males. Among the marine fishermen household, nearly 76% were Hindus, 15% were Christians, and 9% were Muslims. The overall percentage of SC/ST among the marine fishermen households was 17%. The Indian coastline can be delineated into 22 zones based on the ecosystem structure and functions. The Indian boat type range from the traditional catamarans, masula boats, plank boat, built boat, dugout canoes, machwas, donis to the present day motorized fiberglass boats, mechanized trawlers, and gillnetters. In the marine fisheries sector, there were 1,94,490 crafts in the fishery, out of which 37% were mechanized, 37 were motorized, and 26% were non-motorized. Out of total of 1,67,957 crafts fully owned by fisher folk, 53% were non-motorized, 24% were motorized, and 23% were mechanized. Among the mechanized crafts fully owned by fishermen, 29% were trawlers, 43% were gill netters, and 19% were doll netters. India's marine captures fish production increased from 5,20,000 tons in 1950 to 3.15 million tons in 2007. The bulk of the catch comprised oil sardine, followed by penned and non-penned shrimps, Indian mackerel, Bombay duck, croakers, other sardine, and three-rafting beams. Fishing in India is a major industry employing 14.5 million people. India ranks second in aquaculture and third in fisheries production. According to the National Fisheries Development Board, the fisheries industries generate an export earning of rupees 334.41 billion. Centrally sponsored schemes will increase export by rupees 1 lakh crore in financial 2025. 65,000 fishermen have been trained under these schemes since year 2017 to year 2020. Fresh water consists 55% of total fish production. According to the Ministry of Fisheries, Animal Husbandry and Dairying, fish production increased from 7.52 lakhs tons in year 1950-51 to 125.90 lakh tons in year 2018-19, increase in 17 times. Each year, India celebrates 10th July as the National Fish Farmers' Day. Goel Harbor in Kerala is the largest fishing harbor in Asia. It has the longest breakwater. India has 7,516 kilometers of marine coastline, 3,827 fishing villages, and 1,914 traditional fish landing centers. India's freshwater resource consists of 1,95,210 kilometers of rivers and canals, 2.9 million hectares of minor and major reservoirs, 2.4 million hectares of ponds and lakes, and about 0.8 million hectares of floodplain, wetlands, and water bodies. As of 2010, the marine and freshwater resources offered a combined sustainable catch fishing potential of over 4 million metric tons of fish. In addition, India's water and natural resource offer a tenfold growth potential in aquaculture from fishing from 2010 harvest level of 3.9 million metric tons of fish. If India were to adopt fishing knowledge, regulatory reforms, and sustainable policies, fisheries has been recognized as a sunshine sector and has demonstrated an outstanding double-digit average annual growth of 10.87% since 2014-15. The sector has reached record fish production of 142 lakhs ton in financial year 2019-20 and has immense potential for growth. Finance Minister Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman, in her budget speech, financial year 2021-22, has allocated an amount of rupees 1,220.84 crores for the Department of Fisheries, which is the highest ever annual budgetary support for the department. This marks a 34% increase over the budget of financial year 2021. Further, this includes an allocation of rupees 1,000 crores for flagship schemes Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana PMMSY scheme for financial year 2021-22, enhanced by 43% financial year 2020-21. Finance Minister, in her announcement, has also laid emphasis on the development of inland fisheries, and on the first time in the history of fisheries sector, riverine harbors and fish landing centers will be constructed along the banks of rivers and waterways. Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman also announced that agriculture credit target will be enhanced to rupees 16.5 lakhs crores in financial year 2021-22 to provide adequate credit to our farmers, which will focus on ensuring increased credit flows to animal husbandry, dairy, and fisheries. This will be an impetus to earlier efforts of enhancing credit flow to fishers and fish farmers, such as concessional finance under FIDF and extension of Kisan Credit Card KCC facility to fisheries and livestock. And to discuss today's topic, that is fishermen problems and prospects, we have a very elite, knowledgeable expert panel with us. And I would like to invite my first guest, and he is Dr. C.V. Anand Bose, IAS. Dr. C.V. Anand Bose, IAS, is one-man expert commission on labor to prepare an action plan for the welfare and development of the workforce in the context of COVID-19. He was former head of the Disaster Management, Government of India, and Central Job Relief Commissioner, Government of India. He is also the Principal Advisor, Government of India Heritage Project. He was the Vice Chancellor of National Museum, University of Delhi. He has authored 40 books in English, Malayalam, and Hindi, including novels, short stories, and essays. 4 of his books have become bestsellers. 4 books on Vastu and architecture and 1 book on housing received prestigious the Sharjah International Book Fair Award. Dr. Bose is an housing expert, innovator, writer, orator, and visionary. The path-breaking institutions set up by him, such as Nimriti Kendra Building Center, District Tourism Council, and Habitat Alliance, have been replicated at the state, national, and global level. He was the head of the prestigious Supreme Court Committee on the Treasurers of Sri Padma Vaswami Temple. Dr. Bose addressed United Nations General Assembly and specialized sessions 5 times on various international issues. Dr. Bose is a recipient of 31 national and international awards, including United Nations Global Best Practice Award. He also received prestigious Jawaharlal Nehru Fellowship. Kerala government termed him Lord of Ideas. Former Prime Minister Mr. Manmohan Singh called him inspired civil servant, and our Honorable Prime Minister Mr. Modi called him Man of Ideas. Welcome, Dr. C.V. Anand Bose, on our show. Dr. Bose, you are very closely associated with the problems of labor, which includes the fishermen and fisheries department. Now, and you are submitting your reports as a one-man expert commission. Now, this topic, when it came to my knowledge, and when I wanted to put it, although I was having reservations about this topic, I wanted to go for fisheries, but the experts suggested me, no, the conditions of fishermen is such that it should be highlighted. And when I sent my flyers, the comments were very encouraging. People said that this is a right topic you have taken, because so many people wants to know what is happening with the fishermen. And definitely, being you are closely associated, being the collector and the chief secretary of the government of Kerala, you have seen the everything from the very close sector about the miseries and the problems of the fishermen. So we would like to know fishermen problems and prospects. Dr. C.V. Anand Bose, IAS, please.
Thank you, Mr. Goel. I think this topic is coming on the most appropriate day, Vasant Panchami, which is dedicated to the goddess of knowledge. You know, the quintessence of knowledge, the Vedas, were taken away by the Asuras and hidden in the sea. Retrieve that and give it to the world. Vishnu took the avatar of fish Matsya. So I think there is an essential correlation between this day and the topic of discussion. And we know that fish is sacred almost in every civilization. In the Quran, it is said, the Prophet Salihu, when he was thrown overboard a ship, it is a fish which came and saved him to the shores of safety. Similarly, in Greek mythology, we have Orpheus, a great musician, who was transported to safety by another fish, a dolphin. So I think mythologically and scientifically and historically, I think this is a relevant topic on this day. I'm not an expert in this, I'm not an expert in anything, but I had the opportunity of listening to the experts in the Central Marine Fisheries Research Institute in one of their functions. I was amazed by the importance of fish. I am told that fish was born in this world 53 crore years ahead, and mammals came only 20 crore years. Now that is the difference. I am told that there are some fish which can live up to 392 years. Right or wrong, I was told that the Greenland shark lives for almost up to 400 years. And there are fish which can swim at a speed of 120 kilometers. I'm told tiny fish piranha can chop a human being into pieces in no time. So fish the world of fish is an amazing world. But unfortunately, what is now happening around us? I will come straight to the problems and prospects of the fishermen. We destroyed fish. See, we know that fish live in water, but I'm told that fish can also drown in water because we have dumped so much of pollutants. If the oxygen level is less, even fish can drown in water. So we have destroyed fish. We are destroying fishermen, their habitat, their livelihood. I think that is a topic of discussion today. What are the problems there? See, the fishermen in Kerala, I can say, in the recent past, when there was heavy floods, it is a fisherman who came forward and saved their lives. They did such a selfless service. Every fisherman in Kerala during the unprecedented floods became a one-man army. And they came, they risked their own lives to save the people. Therefore, society has got a responsibility to protect the fishermen, to ensure their livelihood, to come to the lighter vein. Technology and other inputs we talk about in respect of fisheries, I'm not going into that because I'm not an expert. Coming to the lighter vein, I was told that one American scientist and a Russian scientist, they were having underwater exploration, wearing all kind of what they say, frogman's apparatus or, a lot of gadgets on their face. Then they saw an Indian scientist just coming without any of these gadgets. He said, what a technology. They went and asked the Indian scientists, how came that we have all these gadgets with us? You have no gadgets and you are in the underwater for exploration. The Indian scientist said, what exploration? What gadget? Don't you know that I'm drowning? This is the situation of fisheries in India today for the fishermen. Fishermen who have contributed a lot to the nutritional security of this country. They don't have enough to eat. They are out of job in seasons. Therefore, the commission, which is headed by me, which of course is ably assisted by experts like Mr. Rajshekharan, this commission has come out with certain specific recommendations to ameliorate the lot of the fishermen. Number one, whenever there is a distress, whenever a fisherman loses job due to seasonal factors or otherwise, government should provide a basic minimum income directly to his account. That is one suggestion. The second suggestion is that if a fisherman dies in harness, he has to be given a compensation of 1 crore. This should be met from insurance, life insurance. And the premium for this has to be paid by the state government and the central government. The third is, suppose a fisherman becomes incapacitated and there is no one in the house as an earning member. Government should step in, or the system should step in and ensure that an alternative job is given to one member. So one job, one family. That norm has to be accepted in respect of fishermen. Then the insurance scheme. There should be an health insurance scheme for the fishermen, which will ensure at least 10 lakh rupees for him in case of health requirements. Similarly, it is also suggested that fishermen find it difficult to get loans from banks, even though governments, both state government and central government, have a lot of schemes to help them with a liberal loan. In actual practice, they have a lot of difficulties in getting this. Therefore, this commission is recommending the setting up of a fisherman's bank on the lines of the Grameen Bank, which will focus on the needs of the fishermen's community. Then, of course, we have a lot of youngsters from among the fishermen who are very bright in their studies. If they secure admission to premier institutions like IITs or IIMs or the premier universities, their entire educational expenses will be met by government. Then, starve hunger is another. Starve hunger. No fisherman in the nation should be starving for any reason. Therefore, it is recommended that fair price canteens be set up throughout the coastal areas and also in the areas of inland fishing, where food at fair prices can be given to the fishermen. And in the case of destitutes, the others can also join. Coupons can be distributed to the philanthropists or businessmen, and the restaurants can be roped in or network from where these destitute persons can show the coupon and get free food. There is also a recommendation. Indian seafood is very dear in the world. Develop a global brand of Indian seafood. We have given the title, the Blue Chain. The Blue Chain Indian seafood restaurants should be developed into a global brand. And then the problems of the girl child. Government should step in and provide financial assistance for the marriage of the girls. Similarly, 45 recommendations have been given to the government. This is only the first interim report. The final report is yet to be done. And the major input which the commission is looking forward to is today's discussion. Because I know the celebrity scientist, expert from India, Dr. Gupta, who is the winner of the Global Food Prize, he has spared his time for this course. And Mr. Raj Shekharan, who is a renowned consultant in this field, is also here. So therefore, Mr. Goel, whatever decisions or whatever suggestions come in this meeting will also go into the report as by way of recommendations. I do not want to take more of your time because the rest of the recommendations, there are 45 recommendations as of now. I will certainly present it appropriately if there is a second chance for me to speak here. I would rather leave the floor now to the experts. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Anand Bose. And Dr. Bose has kindly mentioned very, I must say, we must give thanks to him that whatsoever discussion today takes place and good suggestions whichsoever will come in this today's media conference, he is going to incorporate in his final report, which he's going to submit. And as Dr. Bose has mentioned that already he has submitted 45 points for the fishermen's in his interim report to the government of India. And we know once Dr. Bose is submitting, definitely it will go to with the usual process. But several of his recommendations have been taken up by the government seriously, and few of them have already been implemented, and others are going to be implemented very soon. So it's a very positive and good news. And Dr. Bose has already highlighted what type of recommendation, few of the recommendations which he has put. He has already mentioned about that in our in his talk right now. So instead of going and repeating them, I would like to invite my next guest. Thank you very much, Dr. C.V. Anand Bose, for giving very good thoughts, as well as your recommendations, which we have done. And you are still open to have more recommendations after the outcome of our today's conference. This is something very, very encouraging and happy news to all, including all the fishermen. Thank you very much, Dr. C.V. Anand Bose. Now, I would like to invite my next guest, and he is Dr. Modadugu Vijay Gupta. Dr. Gupta has obtained BSc from Andhra University MSc from Banaras Hindu University and PhD from University of Calcutta. In recognition of his contribution to science and humanity, he received Honorary Doctor of Science DSc degree from GB Pant University of Agriculture and Technology, Pantnagar, and Central Institute of Fisheries Education, Mumbai. Dr. Gupta, a world-renowned scientist, has been involved in fisheries research and development for over 55 years in India and in over 20 other countries in Asia, Pacific, and Africa. He is the first person in India to break the yield barrier and doubling production in aquaculture or fish farming and laid the foundation for Blue Revolution. Dr. Gupta worked as fisheries expert advisor with various international organizations such as United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia Pacific, Food and Agriculture Organizations of United Nations, and World Fish Center, and oversaw implementations of projects in over 20 countries in Asia Pacific and Africa. As research coordinator of International Network on Genetics in Aquaculture, INGA, Dr. Gupta initiated genetics research program and undertook institutional strengthening in 12 INGA member countries in Asia and Africa. He was also responsible for developing codes for responsible transfer of germplasm among member countries. Dr. Gupta has been consultant advisor to the several international and national organizations such as the World Bank, the Asian Development Bank, United Nations Development Program UNDP, Food and Agriculture Organizations of UN, FAO, etc. Dr. Gupta received many honors and awards, most prominent among them being $1 million inaugural Sunak Peace Prize, considered as alternative to Nobel Peace Prize, shared the prize with His Excellency Anoche Chong, President of Republic of Kiribati. $250,000 World Food Prize, considered as Nobel Prize in Food and Agriculture. It is the highest award in the world in food and agriculture, and Dr. Gupta is the only person in the world to receive this honor in the fisheries sector. Trillion Meal Lifetime Achievement Award from International Union for Food Science and Technology. And many other awards. If I will read all the awards, the time I've seen the CV of Dr. Gupta, it's too with full of awards. But for the paucity of time, I'm just highlighting 2-3 awards. If I have missed any big award, Dr. Gupta should excuse me. Dr. Gupta is honorary fellow of a large number of scientific societies and associations. He organized and chaired a number of international conferences. He was the examiner for PhD theses of a number of universities. He is member of editorial board of number of scientific journals. He published over 200 research papers. Presently, Dr. Gupta chairs some of the research advisory committee of the Indian Council of Agriculture Research. Welcome, Dr. Gupta, on our show. Dr. Vijay Gupta, you have already heard what Dr. C.V. Anand Bose has spoken. Now, we would like to know, being the expert in this field, I must say you are on the top, one of the top person in this field in our country. We would like to know your views for the fishermen, problems and prospects. Dr. Vijay Gupta, please unmute yourself.
Thank you very much, Mr. Goel. And I'm very happy the fisheries sector is receiving the attention that was due to it after a long time. In fact, I've been crying for this importance for the sector, which has been providing livelihood and also the nutrition to millions of people for a long time. But only in recent times in India, and the Indian government has recognized the importance of the fisheries and for the sector from the livelihood and from the food and nutrition sector. I'm very glad for that. And now the government has a separate ministry for fisheries. Now, looking at, when we say the fishermen, I look at 2 sectors. One is the marine sector and another one is inland or the freshwater sector. The most of the people, fishermen, are engaged in the marine sector, and it is more little organized as compared to the inland sector. So let us look at the marine sector itself, first of all. When you look at the marine fishermen, again, we go into 3 categories: the mechanized, motorized, and artisanal fisheries. The mechanized fishermen are well rich people, so we don't so talk too much about them. But the problems are with motorized and artisanal fishery. Why are the problems? Why the poverty is more among them? Let us go back to the scientific basis for that. The sector has been overexploited. If you compare the catch per boat or catch per fisherman, what they were getting about 15, 20 years back and what they're getting now is less than half of that. So that's why the income generated per fisherman is much, much lower than what it used to be before. So from the fisherman perspective, I should say, it is become uneconomical. For that reason, the present generation of the fisherman families, most of them are moving out of the sector. They want to go for other areas with better education and better livelihood sector. So what are we looking at? Dr. Bose has brought out a number of issues to improve the status of the fishermen in that. But now looking at what the present people are there in addition to what we are talking about. Now the government is talking and the fishery scientists are talking of reducing the fishing effort so that whoever the fishing will be able to get more catch and better returns for that. So if we are trying to reduce the fishing and fishermen, what are we going to do with these people? So we have to create alternative employment for them. So alternative employment, something related to the fishery sector itself, there are opportunities for that. One, as the government recently has identified, is the seaweed cultivation. It has just taken off in India. It is very much practiced in countries like Philippines and some countries in Africa. It is especially well suited for women. As we know, in the marine sector, actually 50% of the women engaged in processing, marketing, selling, and all that are women. So this seaweed farming is very ideal for the relocation of the excess fishermen population from as an alternative employment. The second area that I see where they can find alternate employment or additional employment is the fish farming. So there is a very high potential, whether it is freshwater aquaculture or brackish water aquaculture and marine aquaculture, which is taking off recently. Now, I see a lot of potential for employing this additional workforce in the marine sector so that they can get more employment and more opportunities, more income from them. So if you look at the marine sector itself, mariculture itself, now we have come up with marine cage farming. So there again, how to marine cage farming is a little capital intensive. A single farmer cannot afford to start a marine cage farming. So looking back with my experience of working with Bangladesh with a few freshwater farmers, where we have introduced with the help of the non-governmental organizations, group formations, small groups of 8 to 10 people, and lease the government clients or the multiple ownership ponds and engage them with the science help from technical help from the government institutions and the financial help from the government and also non-governmental agencies for that. So that's sort of a system that we can develop. Already the Central Marine Fisheries Research Institute, which Mr. Goel has referred to, has already started that. And also the seed production for the marine fisheries is something that is starting recently. So they can be trained by this central government institutions like the CMFRI in establishing hatcheries and producing the seed for that. Now, second area is that the brackish water aquaculture again. Then when we look at the brackish water aquaculture, we identify with the shrimp only one species that we have been growing. So there is a need for diversification of farming in brackish water, not only just shrimp, is again is high value product, high intensive, high investment is required, high risk, and also high profit. So that is not very much suitable for sort of small scale farmer or fishermen as an alternative. But the technologies are now available and seed production has started to do that. The finfish, the fish that can grow in these brackish water areas. Now again, coming to the freshwater also, there are excellent opportunities because we have vast areas of freshwater which have been either unutilized or underutilized. And the technical knowledge required for farming in freshwater is not that much. Even an uneducated person can be trained in about 1 month to start a small business of aquaculture like that. So these are the areas for alternative employment that can be trained and given to them. Now, again, looking at the financial aspects of that one, as Mr. Bose has said, earlier NABARD used to give the financing for the boats and nets and things like that. But again, now the investment from the NABARD has also come down, and personally, the fishermen are dependent on the unauthorized sector of funding where they're indebted to them. Now, when they land their catch from the sea, in fact, they don't have a voice in selling the product because they're indebted to the middleman. So they're forced to sell their product to the middleman at a very, very low price. Sometimes, when you compare what the price they get is 1/4 of what the fish is being, the consumer is getting in the market. So there we have to look at it where how we can improve the sector so that the farmers, the fishers will be able to directly sell, avoid the middleman, and sell to cooperatives, forming a cooperative society like that. I bring an example. For example, in Telangana state, Telangana is a landlocked country, so theirs is only freshwater aquaculture. There are large number of reservoirs where the fishing is done by the fishermen. Fishermen cooperative societies are there. Of course, sometimes they are politicized also. There, the government is trying to help the fishermen sell directly to the consumers. So they are trying to provide cold storage facilities, transport vehicles at subsidized rates, motorbikes, and also the small kiosks in different parts of the cities and the towns, so where they can go and sell the fish in fresh condition directly to the consumers. So there again, the training program, it's necessary to start a training program for this fisherman community. So these are some of the ideas. I can come back afterwards when Dr. Raj has sent me some points which he wants to make. I can add on that one.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Gupta, for giving your views. And Dr. Gupta has given details about the problems, about the reality, what is the condition today for the fisherman in India. And he has given all the details, whatsoever is available and what is not available and what is the condition. And he mentioned one thing, that earlier the fishermen catching more fishes, which have reduced to almost 50% because of so many fishermen are now there. But he says that when government wants to reduce the fishermen, they must provide some alternate arrangements, alternate jobs, or alternate provisions for those who are not going to for the fishing. And he also suggested that what the other governments are doing, although the government of India has started this new projects in India, but he says if we will follow those where they are successful, we can also create more and more opportunities for the fishermen. And he has given example of Telangana, how the cooperative societies are working there. So we can start those types of cooperative society with the help of NGOs as well as with the help of the government. State government as well as the central government. Thank you very much, Dr. Vijay Gupta, for giving your expert opinions about the fishermen's woes which they are facing, the problems which they are facing, and the prospects. And definitely we will come to you next in the next round. Definitely we would like to know more about their problems and the prospects and the solutions. Thank you very much, Dr. Gupta, for giving your views. Now I would like to invite my next guest, and he is Mr. Neolipi Rajshekharan. Mr. Rajshekharan is a writer, music composer, and CEO of Guru Management Consultants, Bengaluru. His creative and social activities includes publishing 6 Malayalam novels and over 40 short stories. He published 2 English novels, King Pawn, based on Syrian civil war, and Azadi, based on the conflict in Kashmir. He has published Competency Web, The Corporate DNA, and several other papers. He composed over 200 songs for labels and independent music. Currently promoting 3 YouTube channels. He is coaching and monitoring startups. He is having experience of 45 years of international director level. He worked in for-profit and not-for-profit organizations. For 15 years in financial services, Bank of India, Chase Manhattan, and Standard Chartered Bank. 10 years in oil and gas, Shell, ExxonMobil, Qatar Petroleum, and 10 years in non-profit CGIAR, World Bank funded international system. 10 years in consultancy and teaching MBA students, entrepreneurs, and corporates. He lived and worked in over 45 countries across continents. He is a management consultant, coach, speaker, creative writer, musician, and active on social media. He is a strategist on governance, performance management, leadership, development, and HR. His expertise in management of startups, downsizing, high growth turnaround and cultural transformation. He is a member of Mensa International. Welcome, Mr. Raj Shekharan on our show. Mr. Raj Shekharan, you have heard what Dr. C.V. Anand Bose as well as what Mr. Vijay Gupta has spoken before you. Now, they both have highlighted the problems of the fishermen. Dr. C.V. Anand Bose mentioned about the few of the recommendations which he has sent to the government out of his 45 recommendations, and he is open to take more recommendations, more suggestions which he can recommend to the government of India if some concrete and good suggestions for the benefit of the farmers can emerge even from our today's media conference. Now, we would like to know, and Dr. Gupta has highlighted the problems which the Indian farmers are now facing, and even he has suggested few of the suggestions, but definitely he would like to suggest more suggestions and solutions in the next round. Now, we would like to know from you, the fishermen problems and prospects. Mr. Neoli P. Raj Shekharan, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Goel, and thank you to the previous speakers, Dr. Gupta and Dr. Bose, who have both presented some of the important aspects of fisheries as such. So I will not go anywhere there, partly because it's not my area of knowledge, and secondly, because I would want them to talk more about it. But my approach is quite different here. So I have gone through the Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana back and the whole document, and it very, very ably deals with the fisheries as a business or fisheries as a sector. It looks at how to improve productivity, how to improve production, how to diversify, how to provide post-harvest technologies, all the right things about how to improve the fisheries as a sector. Now, if you look at the five goals, the seven goals that PMMS Yojana provides, there are only two that talk about fishermen. One, number four, it says doubling of fishers and fish farmers' incomes and income generation of employment. Now that comes from other sectors. It's not directly into fisheries, but definitely important to do. And only one of the seven says social, physical, economic security for fishers and fish farmers. Now that to me is fine in a business document or in a sector development document, but a lot more work needs to be done, as we have seen, to, to look at the fisherman as a person, as an individual, as a human being, because ultimately if there is no fisherman, there is no fisheries. So no matter what technologies we put in place, no matter what facilities we provide, unless fishermen are actively engaged in it in a productive way, and they have a standard of living which has not changed much over many years. And I think it's not a sustainable business. So I'm coming from that point, and rather than go into a lot of discussions, I'll talk about a few initiatives from which my perspective I consider important. And let me say a few words about Dr. Gupta. I was fortunate to work with him almost now 20 years. And little known fact that, we did, I'm a small consultancy, but we did the first national report for fisheries where Dr. Gupta was the main consultant. And that led to a lot of changes in NFDB, etc. And there were a lot of recommendations in that report. Some were implemented, some were not, as usual in any report. But there are still some of them which I would think are relevant today. Now, let me come straight into some initiatives so that Dr. Bose, who will be talking next can pick it up straight away. One is that there are fishermen's welfare boards, which are now state-run. Some states have it, some states don't have it. I don't think there is a national fishermen's welfare board. Now, if this kind of an activity needs coordination, attention, and focus, there needs to be a body that is focused on it. My first suggestion is to create a national fishermen's welfare board. And under that will be some very important aspects and some important activities, such as creating a central registry for fishermen. A fisherman should have an identity card, a ration card, things like that, which go with that identity. And that identity card can also be used to provide credits, to provide basic minimum social security, for insurance, price protection, distribution systems, old age pension, all those things can be linked to that card, and that card can link with, as we have right now, we have the national identity card like Aadhaar. So I think identifying, first of all, how many people are involved in this, what are the situations, what are the family sizes, all these are important because there were two important aspects that came up in the first discussion or in the first presentation that Mr. Goel did. One is that there is a lopsided male-female ratio among fishermen. There are less women, much less women than national average, I think, of women. That is one thing. Secondly, the average family size is also slightly bigger, 4.5 or something. So I think we need to recognize the social dynamics of the family situation. And as has already been said, start putting programs in place for education of the family, support of the family, and empowerment of women into more productive areas, especially as I think Dr. Gupta said, get them into the sales and marketing part of fisheries so that you disintermediate, take out the middleman, and the women can play that role of getting into retail and directly providing it to customers. And many online systems are today possible where people can actually buy online. And with a delivery system, the logistics and delivery system in India is also improving. So third parties can do the delivery. So there are a lot of possibilities there. Now, one of the issues I find as I work with startups, this is a very important one, is that most of the startups are focused on one or two areas like IT, technology, but nobody is interested in funding and supporting startups into the areas of agriculture, fisheries, and few other areas. So I think some of these incubators, including IITs and IIMs, don't have to just stick on to one particular discipline or one or two disciplines where they would encourage startups. A lot more startups are required in the fisheries area, and that needs to be heavily incentivized and supported. So that would be my other suggestion, to look at setting up maybe an incubator. I know there is one that works in Hyderabad called A-IDEA, which has been set up by NAM, which is National Agricultural Administration and Research Management, and with IIM Hyderabad, I think. But that's one small organization. But a lot more needs to be done both in the area of fisheries as well as in agriculture to bring new startups. Now, why am I saying this? I'm expecting some response from Dr. Gupta when he talks about this. In his experience, I would like to know in the other countries, what has been the interface between the private sector and the public sector in improving the livelihoods of fishermen? This is an area where there is a lot of interest from the private sector. There are big exporters, there are big processors, and there is scope for even more. So how do we get those people to come into investments more upstream so that they have a regular supply of good fish and more processing units, more transportation, cold chains. And this has to be very, very strongly linked between the private and the public sectors. That's another area where a key agency will have to play a role in that. Now, some of the other suggestions, so as I said, Fishermen's Welfare Board, Central Registry for Fishermen. Now, some of the other things like housing schemes and development programs, there are already schemes, but they need to get more focus and probably create special segments for fishermen. Now, housing schemes are there, but how much preference do fishermen get? That's something we need to look at in terms of prioritizing. So also skill development programs. The new policy on fisheries talks about very, very new technologies to be implemented. And skill development programs usually lag behind. There are a lot of people, unemployed people, young people, who can be brought into the mainstream by having really good skill development programs, which can also be done by the private and public sectors together. Dr. Bose has talked about minimum social security, and the fishermen have a special problem because there are no fishing seasons during breeding times, bad health. It's not something they can do when they're not in good health. And then there are also no fish. As we said, the catch is reducing. So some de-risking options are required. Insurance is one of the options. Second, as we said, is cutting the middleman. And a distribution system like cooperatives. Amul comes to mind, Anand in Gujarat is an excellent model where the disintermediation was done very well. I think we have to learn from some of those models and say, how can we replicate or create a more customized model for fisheries? Now, social benefits, as we mentioned, there is food security, ration card, for example, one ration card, which can be used anywhere probably. Fishermen can also move. If fish is low in one area, they can move to another area. Nutrition, knowledge and access, healthcare, we have said that, and hygiene. One of the issues in the coastal areas is hygiene, including freshwater, infrastructure, water, toilets, cooking gas. all those things. The basic hygiene and basic requirements need to be looked at. We spoke about special credit schemes. I would think of a much simpler credit scheme for not huge amounts, but smaller amounts which they need. Always they need it. And when you look at the middlemen, as Dr. Gupta said, these fishermen are not captured by large amounts of loans. Sometimes they're very small amounts of loans which force them to sell it to the middleman. Now, if, for example, I know that Dr. Bose has done this before, against the ration card or against the identity card, they can have an account in the post office. Most places have post offices. Why don't we use the post office based system to extend microcredit to the fishers? Then to stop the exploitation, we can also look at cooperatives and distribution facilities, which we have spoken about. And some of the people have, the entrepreneurs will have to get into the post-harvest facilities, packaging, export. And there's a big incentive for export. There is a push on export, but export requires an infrastructure, and export requires a lot more investment into that area. And I don't think it's fair to expect the government to do all the investment. So if we were to tap and create that kind of ecosystem where the private sector can play an equal role, I think that should be possible. Then I said technology upgrading and fish shops for women. That's another idea. This was in our original report, if you remember, Dr. Gupta. What we have said was India consumes fish fresh. Most of us prefer to buy fresh fish. So if you have fish shops which are properly designed like a franchise with proper equipment for cleaning, etc. So the branded shops can be given to women. And some states have women's cooperatives which do these kind of businesses. So you completely disintermediate the middleman. So the fishermen will give it to these shops, and the women folk of their own families will be running these shops. So the money remains within the family. Then one of the things, again, Dr. Gupta may talk about this. I've heard about his work in Bangladesh, etc. When fish is grown in rice paddies as a side crop. In many places, rice fields are flooded, and you can have, I think, short-term crops of fish. I don't know how much we do that here. And another very important stress in the policy of fisheries is to increase local consumption. And that requires three things. One, ease of access, availability, cleanliness, and delivery systems. All these are happening in other sectors. If you look at how many online vegetable portals have come into play, there are a few on fish and chicken, but they're all in the private sector, but cooperative sector can also get into that. And finally, getting women into the mainstream and education for the children are going to be two very important aspects if fishermen are to remain fishermen and in a very profitable profession. Now, the last two things I would say is there is a lot, I'll talk about inland fisheries for a minute. There are huge reservoirs, but I've tried to do this, and there are a lot of problems with who owns these reservoirs. There is the PWD department, water department, marine department, I don't know how many departments stake claims to this. So if I have to lease a reservoir to do something in some states, it's not possible because you run around from one department to the other and nobody seems to know. So leasing reservoirs, so there are some institutional arrangements required with an overriding authority for maybe this National Fisheries Board or an FDB to override some of these and have one-stop approach and one-stop authority and approval for inland fisheries to use the inland reservoirs and water bodies. I would stop here. I'll add later on. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rajshekharan, for giving your views. And what Mr. Rajshekharan has mentioned, he says that although government is doing many things for this particular department or for the benefit of the fishermen, but still many things to be done. And he has especially mentioned about the Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana scheme, that is PMMSY. And he says that although in that there are many beneficials are there, but the two main things are for the fishermen. He says, according to him, there is no national fisheries welfare board existing in India, while state welfare fisheries welfare boards are there. Those who are not doing in the capacity what they were supposed to do. So he suggests that there should be a national fisheries fishermen's welfare board should come in existence. And if it will be there, definitely it will give benefit to the fishermen directly. And he has given lots of suggestions for the fishermen, how the fishermen can be saved from the poverty because according to him, the conditions of many of the fishermen are not up to the mark. They are below poverty line, and because of the there is no scope, the young generation is also not going for this work. And he suggested that we can come out with a cooperative system like Amul, which is a very successful model in Gujarat for the milk business. So why not for the fisheries? Some private sector should be allowed to do the things so that they can sell the product directly without any middleman. The fishermen must get the benefit of selling directly to the corporates or to the private parties, so that the middleman will not be there. Many other suggestions which he has given, which I'm sure Dr. Bose today is listening very carefully about our media conference, because the suggestions which are coming from those experts, if whichever he feels and he felt that these suggestions are really beneficial, he is going to incorporate in his recommendation, which is going to submit shortly to the government of India. Thank you very much, Mr. Rajshekharan. We will definitely like to come again and ask some questions to you. But now I would like to go to Dr. C.V. Anand Bose. Dr. Bose, you have heard both the expert panelists in our show. Now, my question to you is, as one-man expert commission, your overview of fish, fishing, and fishermen, the problems and the prospects, and also the one-man expert report, which on the development of fishermen or the fisheries, which you have already recommended, the 45 points which you said. After listening to Dr. Gupta and Mr. Rajshekharan, if you want to highlight some more points which they might have suggested now, but you might have already incorporated, or you have already in mind to put it in your next report. So we would like to know all that things, all the overview from you. Dr. C.V. Anand Bose, please.
This session has been of great help to the one-man commission. Listening to one of the world's most revered experts in this field, Dr. Gupta, has been a great education for this commission. He has really given many suggestions which can become a game changer in this field. This was buttressed by the specific suggestions and recommendations which Mr. Rajshekharan has given here. I would like to confine myself to what the Commission would like to do with the important suggestions that are given here. Mr. Rajshekharan incidentally referred to the ration card loan. I happen to be a district collector of a coastal district, Kollam, which is a hub of fishing activities in Kerala, including exports. The Indo-Norwegian project was there. I can say, as Dr. Gupta himself pointed out, exploitation is there in the field. For instance, he spoke about NABARD giving loans to the fishermen. Now the difficulties in getting loans. Once when I was going on tour, I saw hundreds of women queuing up before a booth. I asked why is it so? They said, sir, they are taking 1,000 rupees loan from the moneylender. With that loan, they will enter the fish peeling shed. They'll buy fish, peel it, and give it at the end, and will get maybe 1,300 rupees or so. But the exploitation is when the moneylender gives him 1,000 rupees to buy fish for the peeling shed, he takes his cut of 100 rupees as interest. In just 1 minute, he makes 100 rupees, exploiting the poor fishermen, women. And then I thought, why can't the banks give this? Banks were earlier reluctant, but they said, okay, but what guarantee is there that they'll pay back? That is when the idea of the ration card came. I suggested, why not keep the ration card? See, the ration card is very important for a poor family. They would certainly retrieve it. And that is known in this district as a ration card alone. Now taking it forward, that is why we have recommended setting up of a fishermen's development bank on the lines of the Grameen Bank. And Dr. Rajshekharan made a very excellent suggestion of the social security of the fishermen being looked after by appropriate institutions. And for the information of Mr. Rajshekharan, this commission is recommending a national social security board for the fishermen. I think that will perhaps take care of some of the problems which you have given. Now, in the fishing sector, I think this discussion is also mostly riveted on the marine fisheries, but inland fisheries is also there. Both the experts mentioned that. The commission would also give separate recommendations for developing aquaculture as such in India. Now, there is also a need to develop value added for food processing is an area which is to be given importance. The coastal areas which have an industrial corridor among the coastal areas, which will provide excellent infrastructure so that fish-based industries can thrive there. One such proposal is already before the certain state governments, but it will be taken up at the national level for industrial corridors in the coastal regions. Now, as Dr. Gupta and Mr. Rajshekharan will agree, the world over, the most beautiful, the most sought after land is near the beach, especially for residential purposes. But in India, somehow, unfortunately, these areas are neglected and we make it the den of filth and squalor. No, I think why not something? We can develop it on the lines of the French Riviera so that the benefit goes to the fishermen who own the land there. Then, of course, there's a pension scheme which is envisaged. Each fisherman, after 60, he should get a pension at the present rate of 5,000 rupees per month. This is an insurance-linked pension scheme. Now, the exploitation, whether it is in giving loan, whether it is in reaching to them, the programs and projects which are envisioned for them by the government, lot of middlemen, lot of exploitation is there. Again, Mr. Goel coming to a lighter vein. You know, one area where the fishermen are harassed is the allegation they are crossing into the territorial waters of the neighboring country. You know, for political reasons also, Sri Lanka, for instance, a lot of our fishermen are detained. I think how they are harassed is there in that Shah Rukh Khan's film, Chennai Express. See, for no reason, the fishermen are harassed, they're jailed, and they are subject of extraction. Now, there was an IPS officer from Rameshwar. Her father, who was a fisherman, was arrested like this. Then nothing is heard about it. So she has that close to her chest. Once when she went for the fisheries training, we all go for fisheries training. We go into fishing boats in the sea. She was in Mufti. On the coast of Sri Lanka, the boat was captured by the police. And she asked, why is this so? He said, this is an area which is prohibited for fishing. And she said, no, but we have not done any fishing here. The police officer showed the fishing equipment in the boat and said, but you have the equipment for fishing, so we are charging you. This smart girl, she said, I am charging you of rape. Rape, my God, I didn't even touch you. But she said, yeah, it was girl. She said, but you have the equipment for that. This is a harassment which is meted out to the fishermen everywhere for no reason. See, they do not know what is international law. They are going for eking out a living. They are made a subject of international politics in every field. Wherever government provides money for them, schemes for them, it is a middleman who exploit them. And Mr. Rajshekharan himself, in one of the discussions said, and we have incorporated it here, we should have facilitation centers in the coastal area where the fishermen can come and know what are the schemes meant for him, and those who are the facilitation centers should also help them in getting the benefit from government. There's a need for concerted efforts between state government and central government in the matter of fisheries development, fishermen's development. And also, like we have recommended for the migrant workers, wayside amenities in various places in India, or in almost every town. Similarly, we should also have seaside amenities to take care of the requirements of the fishermen. Because once they go for fishing, at times they land up in another shore. And they should have somebody to look after them, some facilities which should be there. That facilitation center is recommended. Then, of course, Mr. Rajshekharan said about the exploitation of women. You know, in every field, in the field of fishing in particular, women are exploited. Therefore, this commission has made a recommendation called mother is a star. Any assistance given to them, whether it is house, whether it is land, it should be given in the name of the housewife. That will empower them to a very large extent. Similarly, there are other recommendations which I am not narrating here for want of time. I'm extremely thankful to Global TV and great input given by Dr. Gupta and Mr. Rajshekharan. Many of these will find a place in the report by way of recommendations. Thank you very much. And I would request both of you to kindly spare your valuable time in this national cause, even in future too. Thank you very much.
Now I would like to go to Dr. Gupta. Dr. Gupta, do you think Government of India is doing a lot for the fishermen or not? Although I will just repeat for the so that our viewers will also know, in this budget, there is a 34% increment of the budget amount which they have allocated in this financial year from the previous year. Further, this includes an allocation of rupees 1,000 crores for the flagship scheme of PMMSY, enhanced by 43%, as well as the agriculture credit targets enhanced for rupees by 16.5 lakhs crores, etc. So if you think this is a good start, or I will say good going as far as the funding is concerned by this present Government of India, do you think it is sufficient, or you want that something more can be done financially so that this sector can develop? And one more point which I would like to just mention about, Dr. Bose has mentioned about the beach lands which are there, which are very expensive in the world. Yes, but in India there is a act of CRZ act that is prohibiting that no construction can take place. Otherwise, if that act will give some real relaxations which are necessary today, then definitely Indian coastal line, which is very beautiful, can also be developed, keeping in mind about the interest of fishermen. I think we will have a separate discussion on that, Dr. Bose, because CRZ is required to be giving some relaxations. Then only the fishermen will get the benefit, because they are staying there. If they will be able to sell some of the part of the property, which is a very, very primemost property, as everybody knows, the most costliest property in the world is that land adjacent to beach. Now, my question goes to Dr. Gupta. Do you think Government of India is doing a lot for fishermen or not? Dr. Gupta, please.
Also, thank you, Mr. Goel. Now, going back to PMMSY and the recent allocation of 22,500 crores for the fisheries development, you look at all the policies talk of increasing the production, but no policy, whether inland fisheries policy that has been approved by the Government of India, or the fisheries national fisheries policy draft is being circulated for comments, does not talk much about the welfare of the fishermen. So that's where we are coming to that. Because when we talk to the fishermen, we have seen it almost, it's not possible to increase their production per boat or per person. So we have to bring issues that could improve their welfare. So that is some of Mr. Bose has and Mr. Rajshekharan has brought out a number of issues that can be addressed through that. Now, I will come back to some of the Rajshekharan has said about that one. Skill development, because these people extra capacity in the marine sector has to be employed somewhere else, and the Government of India is giving more importance for the aquaculture sector, both brackish water, marine and freshwater, there, where the skill development. Now, one of the problem in the skill development, all the research institutions and the state government organizations are organizing a number of training programs, running to thousands of people trained every year. But what is happening to them? Hardly 1% is not utilizing those training programs. The problem here is you trained a person, but you does not tell him where to get the finance to improve his, start some business there, or technical knowledge, or the marketing facilities. We are not telling them. So actually these training programs to a large extent are not effective. I will tell you an example from my experience in Bangladesh working, of course, in the freshwater sector. When we were trying to bring the women into the fish farming, Bangladesh is Muslim countries at that time. When I was working in 1980s, they were not coming out and working in the fields. So we joined the hands with the non-governmental organization. So we motivated them, trained them. Then followed up them with any problems that then, and they showed them marketing avenues. So it's A to Z process that we have been doing that one. And with that resulted 50% of the women when I left Bangladesh about 20 years back were women. So women employment has increased there. Women employment, not only that, that has led to the empowerment of the women. Till then, they didn't have the voice because they do lots of course in the house, but they're not treated as an employment. So when they started bringing the money into the family through their own farming or selling or anything like that, they had a voice. And we saw the families where the women were working were able to send their children to the educational institution as compared to those houses where the women were not working. The father was taking the children into the labor as a laborer. So these were multiple benefits that we have been talking about by employing the women. So there are very large number of opportunities that Rajasekhar has mentioned about integrating aquaculture with the rice farming, integrated rice fish farming that we said. While that may not be suitable all over the country, at places where that could be suitable, they can be employed. The other one is we have tried and worked very well in some of the developing countries, integrating poultry and fish farming. We construct a small hut-like thing over a pond or a water source where the fish farming is done. You raise the broilers or the layers, and the excreta and the extra wasted food material falls into the pond, and fish feed on that, and no extra expenditure on raising the fish. So the farmer will get to do a crop of fish and a crop of broiler or a layer, and risk is lower, and also the income is doubled. So like that, there are many avenues where the government has to take the initiative and also have the hand holding. That's what I said, not only skill development, but go beyond skill, giving the training program, tell them where to get the funding to implement the training program, and show the marketing where the markets are there. So, for example, when we are talking about comparing with the poultry, what poultry development has taken place in India, why? We are talking the fish consumption. In India, the fish consumption, they say anywhere between 5 to 9 kilograms per person per year, as compared to 21 kilograms average in the globally. So if we want to increase the consumption, increasing the consumption means increasing the demand. Increasing demand means increasing the production. Increasing the production means creating more employment. So how do we do that? The way now the fish is being sold in the market, on the roadside, under very unhygienic conditions. Even if I want to eat fish, seeing the place where that's being sold, I will not be tempted to do that. So the NFDB and other agencies are coming up, opening up hygienic markets and things like that. But then a lot more needs to be done. Then how also the poultry consumption has increased? How it has been value addition. See, ready to cook poultry, you get the breast or legs or whatever it is, easily can be bought from the shop and cooked. But whereas in the case of the fish, that has not developed. Again, that can be developed. People can be trained to make the fish fillets, breaded fillets and things like that, where the women can be trained. Now the Central Institute of Fisheries Technology that is based in Kochi has come up with a number of value addition products. That's where I think the government institutions and the private non-governmental organizations come forward and train the women in value addition. Otherwise, without value addition, what they are getting, their product is not half of what they should be getting. So that's an area that we have to look at it. Then hygiene, when you talk of the landing centers, marine fisheries landing centers, excepting for few, most of them are in very unhygienic condition. Unhygienic condition of the landing center means unhygienic fish that we are selling it. Not only that, that affects the health of the fishermen and fisherwomen that are passing there. So we have to look at improving the hygiene at the marketing places and also the landing center, for which again, the government of India through the NFDB and other agencies are giving subsidies for establishment of the, and through the PMMSY also. So these are some of the my suggestions to that. So we have to look certainly at the increasing the fish consumption and also improving the livelihoods of the fishermen that are involved. When you come to the, because most of the problems we have been talking is the marine fishes, but there are a large number of inland fishes also where it is sector is unorganized and it has not received the attention it deserves because they don't have any particular landing center. They sell wherever they like. So I will be very happy to add any more. Mr. Bose, if he wants to talk about that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gupta, for giving your very valuable suggestions. Dr. Gupta has mentioned about the skill training. I just want to give one data that in India, the formal skill training for the workforce is only 2.3%, while if we compare with South Korea, it is 96%, Japan is 80%, and Germany is 75%. So yes, this is an area where the skill training, formal skill training, even for the fishermen is required, and it has to be done on a war footing basis. Then only we will be able to increase the skilled input in bed. We can skill the fishermen effectively. Until unless we will not do it, as Dr. Gupta has mentioned, it is very difficult because they require more and more skills and definitely the hygiene conditions. Thank you very much, Dr. Gupta, for giving your views. Now my question goes to Mr. Raj Shekharan. Mr. Raj Shekharan, you mentioned about the private parties and the markets which are required today. Do you think government like Farmers Act allow corporates to play important role in the sector? I can give you an example. The McDonald's, everybody knows about that. They procure the fish in a bulk. And I was told that they preserve the fish and they are selling that because their policy is to sell the product in the entire world with the same batch of the same catchment at that thing. And it means that fish which the people who are consuming today might be old for few years, but that is a very, very big business, and they are taking from Philippines and other places. Why not we also allow the big corporates to come in the field so that they can procure directly from the fishermen, and which will clear the problems like the hygiene what Dr. Gupta has raised, and it will also give more and more funds to the fishermen. But only thing is that we have to allow those big corporates houses in this field. What you say, like in the lines of Pepsi, which they have the chips companies in India. Why not we allow those big corporates to operate? Mr. Rajshekharan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Goel. It's been a very interesting discussion. Every time somebody talks, it's adding to the whole equation in a different way. Very quickly, I'll respond to your question. Sorry, excuse me. But before that, I want to say two things about private sector and training. One of the things is skill development is a business which is a business for a lot of people. But as we say in the non-profit sector, there is a difference between outputs and outcomes. Now, I can train 200 people, that's my output. But what happens? So what? The next question is how many of them get employed? How many of them improve their livelihoods is the outcome of that. So a lot of targeting of funds in training is going to outputs. So I've trained 200 people, I get money. So what? That question is never asked. So I think we need to start putting metrics in place, measurables in place where training investment is assessed based on the return on that investment, which is not in terms of the activities or the outputs, but in terms of outcomes. And private sector is good at that because in private sector, nobody puts money without a return on it. So I think some of those disciplines will have to come into governmental investments into training. Otherwise, it just becomes activities. As Dr. Gupta said, nothing happens. You get trained, get a certificate, have coffee and go home. That's what's happening. The second part is a very important thing that Dr. Gupta said, I want to emphasize in 2 minutes, is the necessity to create demand. See, ultimately in a market economy, and let's face it, this government is for privatization. It's for bringing in private sector into a big role to play in the national development. And we all have a hangover, including me, because we came up in the socialist setup of mixed economy, where a lot of people believe that private sector is bad, private sector is ugly, private sector is anti-labor. So there are a lot of concepts with which we work, and it's high time to look at it. At least as long as this government or any government is in power, the private sector will have a role to play. But what is important is to make sure that the private sector is not allowed to exploit people beyond a point. So that means good regulations and also building up the strength of the seller. See, what can private sector do if I don't sell it to him or I demand my price? So the ability of the seller to negotiate as an equal comes from organization, from cooperatives, from having organized power for negotiations. Otherwise, individual sellers, individual agriculturists will be at the mercy of somebody. Now we talk about private sector. Actually, the middlemen today are worse than the private sector. We don't recognize that because it's not an organized sector, so we don't talk about that. Today, if you look at even the agricultural scene, the middleman is worse than the private sector because they completely hold them by giving lots of little credit to something and they have to sell it to them. So that is the second part. And the third question that you asked is in terms of the role of private sector. Bringing private sector into the fray is extremely important for three reasons. One, investments. If you don't create the demand, let me talk a minute about the demand, then come back to this. The demand is created by proper marketing and branding. There's no question about it. And government is ill-equipped to handle that. So unless we create a national brand, as was stated earlier, Indian fish, as just like, Indian culture or Indian meat or Indian whatever, there's an Indian fish brand that needs to be created, which creates a pull. Now, if Indian fish is promoted and marketed abroad, people will want Indian fish. And then the chain that Dr. Gupta spoke about, if there is demand, there will be production. If there is production, there will be improvement. And there is improvement, there is money. But you can't push the other way around. You cannot keep increasing production, hoping somebody will buy it. That may not happen. So it's a classical sales versus marketing. Marketing is creating demand. Sales is pushing products. So I think, it's very important for us to recognize that we need to push the marketing side of this much higher and to make it a fashionable food. Our per capita consumption is very low by global standards. It's a much better protein than meat, red meat. For health reasons, it's important. For nutritional reasons, it's important. There are certain micronutrients, etc., in fish, like omega oils, etc., which is not available in meat. So packaging it properly, presenting it well, and marketing it is, I think, where this particular report is silent. I feel bad about it because if you keep pushing from the production side, you are in the market trying to sell your product and nobody wants it, or we have not created the demand. So I would say that private sector has a big role to play in this. The big exporters have a big role to play in this. They are the ones who are exporting. They can also be helped with a brand. If there is a quality standards and a brand that is widely recognized in India and abroad, people want it, and premium pricing can be assigned to that. So that's what I would say, because I'm not in favor of pushing production without looking at enhancing demand. And that I see as one of the weaknesses of this.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Rajshekharan. I can only add one thing, that even in India, if we will see, the North India, we are not getting that much fishes which we are supposed to get, because the main fishes which are very popular in India, they are in the coastal areas, and they are not there in the northern area, because people who wants to go for the sea fish, they are not getting those fishes in northern India because there is no sea. So the marketing is required even domestically in a proper way, as you mentioned about the hygiene conditions and a proper packaging and proper marketing. As medical fraternity always says that fish is very healthy for the proteins, and fish consumption is to be increased. But when our consumption is so low, it's very difficult. So today, I think, no, we have time for 30 seconds. If you would like to give any one point, Dr. Bose, if you want to summarize only 30 seconds, I can give you for today's media conference.
For clarification, when I said about developing the coastal areas in the Riviera, it should all be well within the regulations. There is no question of flouting the regulations, and that is number one. And if changes have to be made in the law, that's a different aspect which can also be considered. And the second point is that in my experience, I feel that whatever are the schemes and projects we envisage for the fishermen, the delivery is the most important thing. I think we should have appropriate delivery system which can take the benefits of governmental schemes to the people. And for the poor people, it is not the magnitude of the assistance, but the certainty of assistance, which is important. Therefore, formulating policies and programs and recommendations is one thing, but implementation is the most important thing as far as the vulnerable sections of society are concerned. Therefore, appropriate and effective delivery systems should be created so that the people, fishermen, get the benefit which governments and others are giving for them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Gupta, any point you want to raise? 30 seconds.
Just as an example of, we talked of the increase in the domestic consumption because of the health benefits of the fish and all that. I was trying to compare in Thailand, how they sell the products, beautifully packed and fresh. It is tempting for the people to buy the fish there whereas we are, you are deteriorated there. So it's a small addition that, hygienically pack. That's where our women can be employed. The fishermen and fisherwomen can be employed. That one that will increase the domestic consumption and also create employment for the women and also improve their incomes, the family income. This is my suggestion.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Gupta. Mr. Rajshekharan, any point? 30 seconds, please.
Just one point. Because of the lack of facilities for storage and transportation, today what is happening is a lot of chemicals are being used to preserve fish, which is unhealthy, including formaldehyde. So this is creating a negative perception about fish, because once fish is preserved with these kind of chemicals, then obviously it's a much bigger health hazard. So that's something that needs to be dealt with along with this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rajshekharan. So today you have seen that how the fishermen are facing lots of problems, but the prospects are bright, as because the government, this present government, is taking lots of initiative for the fisheries and for fishermen. As Dr. C.V. Anand Bose, one-man expert commission, has already recommended 45 of points, and now he is again going to recommend furthermore whatsoever has come outcome of this particular today's media conference. And I'm sure the government, today's government, which is taking care of so many sectors, will definitely like to see and give some more things for this particular sector, and that especially for the fishermen. And as very nice suggestions have come from all the panelists today, I am sure today's media conference with Lal Goel is very, very enlightening to everyone, and not only the fishermen, but to all the citizens of our country and even those who are residing abroad. Thank you very much. And today's program, which has been live telecasted by V4 News, Global TV, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV, News Gaon se Samvad Sarokar News, as well as it was shown live on Facebook and YouTube. And our endeavor is to bring to you every day a new topic. And tomorrow, media conference with Lal Goel at 10:30 a.m. The topic is publishers, problems and prospects. Yes, because of the COVID-19, the books which has been published in the last year were all either lying there in the godowns or with the those who have procured the wholesalers, but they could not sell. So we will be discussing that point, and our panelists are Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal, President Indo-Gulf Marketing Association, Dubai, former Professor of Marketing Innovation and Management, IIM Lucknow, XLI Jamshedpur and California State University, USA. Professor Dr. K. Sankaran, Director, Justice K.S. Hegde Institute of Management, NITTE. Professor Dr. Asif Ali Sayyed, Professor, Marketing, Department of Business Administration, FFS&R, Aligarh Muslim University, Aligarh, and Mr. Rakesh Kumar Jha, Civil Service Coach, Managing Director, Discourse Academy, Delhi. So please tune in tomorrow for media conference with Lal Goel at 10:30 a.m. Thank you very much, Dr. C.V. Anand Bose. Thank you very much, Dr. Vijay Gupta, and thank you very much, Mr. Rajshekharan, for joining us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you all the viewers for watching our such an enlightening discussion and media conference today. Thank you very much.